Traders, the purpose of this video is to teach you as much as we can about Sniper as quick as possible. So in simple terms, what we're looking for is a signal like you see on screen with green coming through, which allows us to trade, and then just a complete change of color to all red right across all the columns like that. And then we may look to get out when we have the opposite color come into some of those columns. So we'll discuss what each column is in detail, and then we'll go and have a look at as many examples as we can. So the columns on the left are all about price, and they update every minute. So it grows from the bottom up, and the bright red line that's coming through there and there, that just shows that we're on the hour. This next column, we'll skip the blue one, that's not necessary. This red and green one just means it is appropriate to trade because the volatility is high enough, or it's not appropriate to trade. So whenever this column's red, we don't touch anything, and whenever it's green, there's enough volatility for us to consider taking a trade. We'll just jump over this white one here, it's not necessary. Now we've got 4 columns through here, and if you look really closely, what the number is showing is just the current price. But it's the way it shows so much information so concisely. And it's showing us all red or all green, and what we're looking for here is just a straight line. You can see how it was dim and then it went bright, and it was a straight line of red coming on. That's what we'd like to see. Or we'd like to see a straight line of green. And so here we see also there's an up or a down marked there as well. So think of it this way, it's these 4 columns denote the build-up, okay, of different possibilities. And when they're all aligned, that means the intensity is at its max. The next one is these columns down through here. You've got 3 white ones. And the column on the left is the number of minutes since the market has changed direction. So, for example, and we'll see plenty of examples of this, but when we see a signal, our question is, has it happened perhaps in the last 15 minutes? Or is this a 30-minute old signal before we're getting in which case it might be a little bit old. The second and the third column, when you're new, you won't pay too much attention to them, but the middle one is all about the intensity of the trigger, and the third one is really about assisting with your exit. But there's easier and more graphic ways of observing an exit than that. So for someone brand new, you don't worry about these second and third one. The next column is, you'll see a little buy or a sell popping up there. The next one is what we call the rope, with knots on the rope, and that's this yellow one with stars. And then lastly, on the right, we have volatility, and we like to see there's lots of volatility there. So we'll break this down now, and in simple terms, there's 3 columns that are really important. The first one is this one here. We just want to make sure that it is okay to trade. So we wait for that one to turn green. The next thing is we want to see there's decent amounts of volatility around. Now, this shows when volatility is at real extremes, which is excellent, but it can be just like this down here as well. Not extremes, but really evident. What we don't want is volatility to be like this, where there's just absolutely nothing on the scene at all up there. Okay, so first thing, can we trade? Yes, no, in this column. Second thing, do we have volatility? And the third thing is, and this is really strong, is knots in the rope. If we see some knots come along in the rope right at our point where we're considering getting in and out, that's really powerful. So those 3 things are an outstanding combination to look for right off the bat. Now after that, what we'd like to see for our actual entry is we'd like to see a solid color shift from one to the other, like this, and then it would say down or up if it's solid green, and we'd like to see solid color come across here, and so down will be complemented with a sell, or an up complemented with a buy, and we'd like to see this first column on the left, that number there, if that's been within 15 minutes, then that's really helpful. So we'll look at a few more examples, and then we'll go through and have a look at some scrolling examples. That gives you a quick overview. From this point, if you'd like to now grab yourself a copy of a free trial if you haven't already, or if you have everything you need to know at this stage, no need to keep watching this video. But if you'd like some in-depth training now from this point onwards on what we're looking at, stay with us and we'll just look at many examples and discuss all the nuances and the finer details of this trading opportunity. So on screen here we had solid green come across and we had a little up, but there's a whole heap of things that are not right about what we see on screen. Firstly, our column that says can we trade or not is no at that point. Okay, so if we draw a line right across, that's the line we'll be looking at, then there's no opportunity there and there's no volatility. Now when we're actually examining these things, the opportunity comes from the bottom up. So we're always looking at this bottom line, and that new bottom line is updated every minute. You'll see a new line come in. Now for the sake of discussion, rather than just talk about the new line coming in the bottom, we'll just have a look at what has happened along here on screen and discuss it, what is good and what is bad about it. So on screen here, this column here shows us that it is okay to take trades. Then we've had an up, which is nice, and we've had a straight color change. Now it's not ideal, and it wasn't all straight one color. It's half red, half green. It alerts us that there's a possibility. Then we've had solid color come into here with a buy, and volatility has increased, and we've got 2-3 knots. Now the 2-3 knots, that's really nice. That's really powerful. So there's an opportunity there. Now the next question is, where would one consider to hop out? Well, there's a few different ways to hop out. One is that if up to 3 of the other color come in on these 4 columns here, so as we're going along, let's say we're long with the intention to benefit from a rising market, and we have a bit of red come in and then another red on another column, and we have 2 or 3, but particularly 3 of the other color, then we could say that isn't showing us that perhaps there's an exit opportunity to close that position and exit the market. Another opportunity is we could stay while ever this is solid green. If it might, see how it's broken up, it has parts that are black through there. But if we had completely solid green all the way through, then that also is an opportunity. Okay, let's discuss another opportunity here. So solid green means yes, it is okay to take trades. Then we have volatility starting to increase, so that's nice over here on the right. And you'll see that there's some knots in there, so that's really good as well on the rope. Now, we've got a solid red all the way across with down, and then we've got solid red here with sell as well. So that might be our entry point right there, or it could be slightly prior. And then we'd take that point down. So you can see the price actually on the screen. So this is, you can see it's at the 24 pip mark. And as we go down, it drops down to about the 11 pip mark, that type of thing. What's interesting is where you get in. Now, it's important not to get wound up with the idea that there's one particular way that all people must trade this, because everyone has a different personality type and they have a different risk tolerance. So you'll find that the moderators that you trade along beside and you listen to, and you'll see chat conversation back and forwards with, you'll see they all have a slightly different style. Okay, and that's just because they've all got slightly different risk tolerances. And as you trade along beside them, you'll see that there are certain methods for someone who's brand new to ensure they get off to the best start, and then from that you branch out, and there's a few variations that you can enjoy from there. Okay, so here we have a down, but there's no opportunity there because it was red at the time. Here we have a sell, but then it had turned green, so perhaps there's opportunity if we saw some knots and some more volatility. And if it's a quieter night and we know that price is just sort of swaying slowly from one side to the other, then we may even take that opportunity there. So here's a nice opportunity here. We've got an up that sat there by itself, but then we've got the real shift of color come into the main section right through here. What's interesting, the first column on the left has a little 1 right there, and that means that it's 1 minute into this most recent shift in this direction. And this shift went on for over 80 minutes. We have lots of knots, which just shows real strength. That's very, very exciting if you see that many knots. And then we've got volatility stretching right on out. So that's very exciting. You could choose to stay in until you have 3 lots of color come in here, or you could choose to stay in until this green thing comes to an end through here. So here we've got 6.97. So there's about a 30 pip move if you were to take it down to here. Or if you were to jump out when 3 lots of red came in over to the left here, there was still about 30 pips there as well. So it didn't make any difference which personality type you were. One would just mean you're in the trade a little bit longer than the other. But again, a very nice move, and 30 pips is very respectable on an intraday and even over an hour and a bit period. Here's another example, and you should be starting to see now what's ideal and what's not. So here we've got red and then we've got a bit of green coming in, so the green means it's okay. When it snapped across here, we had a bit of green just at the top, so it wasn't just absolutely ideal. But we do have, it's only 2 minutes in that the cell came up as well, and we've got knots in the rope all the way through, which is really nice to see, and volatility ballooning right out there. Now there's about, if you have a look, there's about 16, 15 pips in that. If you were to hop in and ride it until you see 3 of the other colour popping in through there. Okay, so that might be all you need just for now, or if you want even more detail, stay with us and we'll actually look at a lot more examples again. Okay, you're still with us? Well, that's great. There's so much more to show you. So I hope you really enjoy this. So this trade here, it's not that great, but it's pretty good. We've got green that's saying yes, you can trade. We've got volatility coming into it. We've got knots. This is great. And we've got a clear cut from dull to bright green, only a little bit of red, so it's a pretty fresh cut right across. And then we've got solid green coming in. The reason it's not that great is you'll notice that we're 81 minutes into the trade. We'd like that to have been 15 minutes into that move. So this move's pretty old. Nonetheless, have a look at price. There's still, if you look at the numbers carefully, there's about 30 pips in that move still. But what's interesting with these knots, I'll tell you a little more detail about it. It's like a person who rides a push bike or a bicycle and they want to go over a jump and they hit that jump and that means they take off into the air, or if they want to drop down into what we call a pipe or a bowl, and you drop down over that lip and down inside it. Well, that is like the lip. It's like the lip of the jump or the lip down into the bowl. And it's the thing that gets the trade underway and gives it some real momentum. So that's what the knot is about in the rope. So it's really important. So what we're doing here, traders, is just watching the volatility. See down through here? No volatility. And we can't trade. So there's just times when it's just not worth trading for anyone. Okay? And so we've got a really simple, easily measurable way of saying, no, not enough volatility in the market to trade at this point. Now, a more advanced trade that you'll see traders like to take is they'll actually look at this down and they can enter their short, and then when this comes up they can look to put some more on. Okay, but they can take it depending on how this first one lines up and the volatility is there and how long it's been since that shift has happened. Traders will quite often take it just from this point here. So as you can see, it's very simple for a newer trader, but then there's some subtle nuances that provide some outstanding extra opportunities once you get into the swing of things. Okay, this trade here, you would not take this up. Even though, see how it's a perfect slice, it was dull green, and then there's just a slice across to bright green. But you wouldn't take it because it said don't trade. Over now, do I trade or not column? Absolutely not. It's red, stay away. And so you wouldn't. And there's no volatility up through here. Okay, so there's nothing exciting about that. Now, if someone did take it down through here, no harm done. It just didn't go anywhere, that's all. Now this column here, you'll see that it is the amount of time that price has been heading in a particular direction. So when it resets, there's actually an opportunity to go in the other direction as well, particularly when it resets after 100. We'll go into that a little bit later. But see how this figure down here is getting up above 100. When that goes back to 1, that right there is a trading opportunity. But particularly where you'll see it pop up is when there's a bright color all the way across the screen. That's when it'll show the number for you. So normally you'll be used to this middle number, the number on the right, and you'll be used to seeing this number on the left when this bright red or bright green rectangle appears around all three numbers, and that's great because that just tells you how old the signal is. So this is really interesting here. You can see that this trade, the sell happened 1 minute into what we call the switch. So that's 1 minute into the switch. Great, we've got volatility and we've got knots coming into that as well. Here, this is about 6 or 7 minutes in on this little baby here. Okay, so the strongest trades are when the switch is almost immediate or within 5 minutes. So these are they're quite weak at 17 minutes and 23 minutes. So this trade here, 24 minutes in, not ideal, but again, it's not the end of the earth either. Don't get hung up with this. It's just that right now at this point in the video, we're making a very special study, particularly of this column. But we have green, good to trade. We've got solid color right across the top just about, except for a bit of green there. That went pretty quick, and the volatility is increasing right out. Having a look at where you get out of that trade, you could hop out here when the solid color removes out of these columns here, or when you've got 3 coming in here. And again, it's a difference of, in this case, 3 pips or 4 pips, so it doesn't really matter. And you can see by the numbers that that move is a really substantial move. Here we've got 4411 down to even 4477, but we've got 3 of the other color coming in there. But then it's restored here, and we've got now still volatility and knots coming back. Have a look at the size of the knot here. Knots are really, really, really powerful. Okay, and you'll see volatility ballooning right on out, and you might say, oh yes, but it was 43 in. Yeah, but have a look at when the up and when the buy, that was at 19, so you could have been in from up this level here. There's nothing wrong with any of that. And then you're in until you got perhaps 3 lots of color come in, or this completely at an end plus 3 lots of color. But there's huge opportunity through there. And again, a lot of knots like this is really powerful. Okay, just an interesting point here. Here's no trading, it's just red, and volatility is 0, and there's no knots. But just have a look at the straight across cut. So here's a straight across cut of green after we had nothing of the sort for some time. And you can just see that it's still having an effect. I mean, that's at 1.4482, and it moves up to 1.449799 in through this area here, back down to say 9392. So even what the market's doing, it's still helping to interpret, and it's still providing opportunity, even in a quiet sideways day where nothing's going on. Okay, here's a situation, and you're going to get it in trading no matter what, is you have one direction and then you sometimes might have the other direction come in. Well, what's interesting about this is, remember, the knots is the strongest, and the knots showed us that they were in the green direction. And have a look at the cut across. It was all green, okay, and it just said you can buy at this turn from red to green at this buy stage here. So this was really just a pullback down through here. It was very weak what came through. There was no knots involved with it. So some might hold with their original, or others might do a switch and then a switch back. But this move obviously has followed through and gone along right the way through. And these knots here show the opportunity again. So even in a situation like this, it can be really well handled. And even in a situation like this, the knots show us where the strength is and what's really going on, and which way we want to handle and roll our trade. And then this solid green helps us just carry it all the way through. And again, these are amazing moves. I mean, that's at say 26, and that's all the way up to 73 and beyond. So here's an opportunity here. The down came along, and the sell is actually what changes from red don't trade to green, which is fine. It's straight across, volatility increase. Sadly, there's no knots, and if you're in until 3 lots of color come in, there's maybe 20 pips in that move there. Okay, this is another interesting point, and these are good to discuss. So here we've got a buy signal up 4 minutes in, strong knots and everything, and then we've had a sell soon after, but it's pretty obvious which one has the better volatility, and these knots coming in the second time were with red volatility through there. So depending on how you handled it, but you could lose say 40 pips through there if you're long before the short came in, but then there's about 70 pips that you can pick up through here. So you're not going to get every trade right, but even when you have a situation like this where you go one way then the other, it's still very comfortable to work with, and in situations like this you'll still often have a happy outcome. And this is ideal. See how the volatility has absolutely, when it goes this color like this, it's because it's just getting so intense. It doesn't know how to draw it on the screen anymore, so it goes like this, all bold. Okay, and it's called block trading, but when you get in at the start of the block and just follow a whole block through until you see it fall away like this again, and then you're back out at the end of that block. That's an amazing move to be able to pick up as well. If you wanted, you could just look for big blocks like this. It just comes down to how patient are you. Do you have the patience to wait for huge blocks to come through like that? But those blocks, the knots with the blocks that just max out like this, is an absolutely wonderful opportunity too. In 2008, there was pages and pages like this, and that's just because at that time everything was going to extreme volatility. Here's a nice example where we've got it's okay to trade with this column coming through here. And we've got straight across with an up, which just preps us for an opportunity. And then we have a buy at around the 51 mark, and it's only 40 minutes in. We've got 2 knots, which is nice. We've got volatility increasing, and then from the 40 it gets up to the 80s. So there's 40 pips in that. And then if you just we're getting out on 2 colour and coming into this, then you'd be out sort of around the 80s mark. If you're waiting for 3 colours, then you're out at around the 70s mark. And the 3 colours happened at exactly the same time that the bold colour dropped off through there. Okay, there's maybe 15 pips in this. We've got a down and then a sell. But remember too, it says don't trade over here to the left. One thing we'll talk about a little more in detail is see this column on the right here. What you're interested in as the trade progresses is you're interested in the biggest number. So here it got up to say 30, and then a little later it might have got a bit up to say 35. But that's when that number gets as high as whatever number it logs, you want to watch in reference to the highest number that's appeared so far in that red. When it starts decreasing, how much is it decreasing in reference to that number? Because that's when you're starting to give your money back. So for example, let's say you just hypothetically had taken this, just as an example, even though you wouldn't. We'll pretend that that was green up the top there. And then you were getting in here at sort of the 91 mark. And then you're down here at the 80 mark. See how we're up at 30s and then we're back down to 10s? Well, when it's dropping down that much, it's like about 20, decreasing by about 20, that's also when you'd be looking to make a decision as well, because it shows it's starting to slip back a little bit. So that's what we use that column on the right. We won't talk too much about that. That's just something that will come with a little experience, but it gives you a bit more of an idea of how to interpret it. Okay, here's an example. There was over 30 pips in this. So we've got green, which means it's fine to trade. We've got solid red right across, pretty much, apart from that little bit of green there, with the down. And then the sell came in, and it was 9 minutes into the shift. So that's really healthy. And volatility is increasing right through, and then it's about from the 34 mark down to about 12, so maybe 20 pips. And then you've got a sort of about 3 green coming through there. Or if, since the 3 had come through, you're waiting to the end of this solid block, it was actually about the same, about only a pip different. Okay, this one's interesting. The down came along when it was solid red, okay, and then the sell came through quite a bit later when it turned to green, which is okay to trade. Even at these price levels here, you can see there's a huge amount in that if you wanted to take the whole solid block. Now see how it's solid, which just means we'd stay with it while this block is solid all the way through here, and you could look to exit with the first, if you get 3 in this, or you might want to exit when the end of the block comes, and again, it doesn't make too much difference either way. It's just your style. And this volatility coming out to max here is absolutely great to see. What you'll see too is some of these moves about halfway through it has given so much even at that point, and if you make a huge amount of pips, you might even just have a flat profit target that you're content to take off the table. This little one here is what we call a back trade. So if we've just had a really solid green, then we'd expect a little trade in the other direction. You'll almost always see something like that. Or if we've just had a huge big red section, then you'll see a little green happen at the end as well. And they're a lot of fun. The style and the way you trade them is a little bit different in how you position your profits and stops, and that's another little nuance that you'll pick up later. Okay, have a look at what's good about this trade. So our up came quite a bit earlier, but when we had the solid green come through and a buy signal, it was a 1, which means it was the first in that direction, and the knots are hugely strong immediately. We have 4 knots, which is hugely strong. Won't often that you see that, and the volatility is moving out strong, and it goes on to balloon right out. So yes, we will forgive the fact that it wasn't a straight green cut across, because we have other things. We have knots that are so strong, we have volatility that's so strong, and our switch across happened within the first minute, and so there's so many things that do make this strong. So that's a very exciting opportunity down through there. The less money you have, the less transactions you should be looking to make, and the more patient you should be to wait for great opportunities. And this is a great opportunity because the knots are so strong, the switch was so strong, and the body of color goes on to maintain without any gaps all the way through. So there are outstanding opportunities. The real question with you and trading sniper will be how patient are you and what trading personality type are you. If we had straight green across here and the up happened even closer to the buy, then that would be a perfect situation that every beginner should be looking for, and that would help a beginner get off on a really good start. Okay, this one says it's okay to trade. Our down and our sell happened at the same time, which is a huge plus. Our switch across, it was 2 minutes in, which is a huge plus. Our volatility was quite a lot, and then had we taken that, we would have had emotional confidence in it, with more knots coming in all the way through as well. And we could get out with 3 lots of color. You know, if we did that, there's probably 15 pips in that one right there. Okay, here's a really nice trade. So green says yes, we can trade for up, and then our buy comes through 40 minutes in, which is fine. We've got knots coming all the way through, brilliant. We've got volatility going right out to the extreme, and then away it goes. So there might be, depending on if you want to get out with 3 of the other color or get out when this block comes to an end, there's still the opportunity for about 40 pips through that in about an hour and a half. And that's an ideal situation and ideal setup that we'd be looking for. If you're patient, great opportunities come along. It's like surfing. You just got to wait for the really great wave. Okay, with this trade here, the up came along, but it's don't trade, don't touch it. When it turns green, it's about sell. So we've got solid red right across here, solid red right across here. All the solids happened at once in this case, so it's perfect cut across to all red. Solid red cut across all the way here. The snap across happened at 1 minute, so it means it's very strong. Volatility is strong. It would have been nice to have knots, they came later, and then volatility ballooned right out. And again, there's an opportunity for 20 or more pips. Just even getting out in this 3 of the other color, or this block coming to an end. And keep in mind too that you may want to use this as your entry to then collect a really nice long move as well. Something you'll see a little bit more of later is see how this went all the way up to over 100, this first column. So here's at 122. And then it switched back to one the other way, and we're evidently long because this is all green as we head into the 100s. Then that right there is actually a trading opportunity to enter short and to feed in this area into this area here. Now, when all this comes along as well, then you can just really keep on riding it. But that's an advanced opportunity that we may turn on a little later. Okay, this is textbook. You didn't have the knot, but look at this. You've got turns green, which says yes, you can buy. You've got from dull to all bright and red, and it was straight across. The down and the sell happened at the same time. It was 9 minutes in, which is fine. And volatility just went straight to extreme. So this is called trading the block, in at the start of the block, out at the end of the block type thing. Is one opportunity, which is great. And that's in at 99. And then the thing, drops down to the 70s. If you got out on 3 red, that's just under 20 pips. If you got out, it's about the same, 20, 22 pips if you got out at the end of this thing here. And the most is actually probably if you're getting out at the end of that block. But that's all. It would have been nice to have knots as well, but see how it's a no-brainer, and you don't have to think. When you see something like that come along, it's like, great, that's what we want to see. So again, it's not a question of which trade is the best trade. It's more a question of how patient are you. And as you spend time with Sniper, it'll really help you interpret what price is doing.